Don't be threatening. Be nice. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
What a stupid question that is.
Keep your voice down, please.
From Donald Trump's attacks on the media.
I'm going to continue to attack the press. Look, I find the press to be extremely dishonest.
And the low bar of respecting freedom of the press not being met.
You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You know what? You ought to be ashamed. You just asked your question in a very nasty tone.
You keep calling us the dishonest press. It seems as though you're resistant to scrutiny, the kind of scrutiny that comes with running for president of the United States.
I like
you're saying,
scrutiny, but you know what? When
you're raising money for veterans.
Excuse me. I've watched you on television. You're a real beauty. This sleazy guy right over here from ABC, he's a sleaze. The press, honestly, is out of control. The level of dishonesty is out of control.
And a precedent set of those in power firing back even when in the wrong. It brings us to this man, Lincoln Riley, head coach of the USC Trojans football program. Riley, in his second year, has the team in contention to make the college football playoff. But the treatment of the media has raised eyebrows locally. Here's the tea. Luca Evans is a beat writer for the OC Register covering the team. Riley took exception to his reporting and suspended him. So what was the infraction? What could it have possibly been that Lincoln Riley despised from this reporter? Was it Riley getting called out for a poor play call? Was it some awful exchange between head coach and media member? No, it was not. Quentin Joyner, a freshman running back, was waiting to speak with the media. Braylon Shelby, a freshman DN, spoke with Joyner on how to address the press. In Luca Evans' report, he overheard the conversation the two had. Did they tell you what to say? Shelby asked Joyner. Just talk about the team, he replied. Guys, that's it. That's it. Though USC and their media relations department will say otherwise. The story goes, Ryan reached out to Evans' editors at the OC Register to bring up him asking questions when pressers are over and talking to team personnel outside designated media availability at the practice facility. Todd Harmonson, senior editor at the paper, called this an overreaction. And to that, I concur. Let me just try to put this in perspective here. You're at a press conference. Reporters are getting their questions in, writers are getting their questions in, and when they say, all right, that concludes it, you know what usually happens? And we've seen this with the White House press as well. When the president is walking off, they will try to get their question answered because they were not called on to have their question answered. Or they had another question that was important to them writing their story. This happens all the time. All the time. It is not abnormal. It's rather par for the course. So I don't see the mishap here at all. The second part, talking to players outside of designated media availability. He's a reporter. Reporters, journalists, writers, on-air hosts, producers, guest bookers. You know how many of them will approach an athlete? Maybe they use them as a source. Maybe they're trying to get the correct reporting on the team. Sometimes it just doesn't happen the way Lincoln Riley and this USC athletic department wants it to happen. I'm sorry, this is the God's honest truth. They are trying to limit the parameters of reporting when this is a free press. Also, Luca Evans does not work for USC. He works for the OC Register. When the press caught up with Lincoln Riley, he said this.
I don't feel like we have, too many rules, too many policies, but the ones that we do have, we take them serious because my first job is not to, even though it is part of my job, it's not to the media, it's not to the fans, it's not to anybody else, it's to protecting our players.
Evans is now sidelined, I see here, until September 28th. Interestingly enough, usually the protocol is when a coach or a player, team personnel, believe that something was written in error, they will call for a retraction. That never happened here. They don't believe that this was inaccurate. They thought it was a misstep. I also find that to be pretty interesting. Though Riley was not done.
There was enough enough there. I know the article in question was not accurate. There were multiple policies broken, and felt like that felt like it was far enough that we needed to act. But we'll look forward to welcoming back the reporter in question once that time's up.
Which specific policies?
Like I said, there were multiple that were broken, but I'm not going to get into specifics.
When pressed by the paper's Jim Alexander, Riley refused to cite any policy. He just kept saying that it was an infraction on the policies that they hold. I would hope if someone were in a leadership position like this, that they would be able to state what part of the policy was violated so we can get down to the nitty-gritty here. Via Ryan Young, this isn't the first time such an incident has taken place at the school or under Riley in his second year with the team after a 5-year run at OU. SC briefly suspended an LA Daily News reporter when the team was led by Lane Kiffin after the reporter reported on an injury. Riley canceled media availability at OU in 21 after student journalists reported on developments within the quarterback situation while watching practice from the school's on-campus journalism building, which is across the street from the practice field. If there's anything that is a misstep and a mishap, it was not from Luca Evans's reporting, no matter how much they may hate the press, freedom of the press on that campus and within the confines of the program. The misstep was from Lincoln Riley, because now you guys are being talked about in the worst possible way instead of y'all being a top contender to go to the national championship game.